everyone. Welcome back to another deep dive. You ever hear a story, maybe from a totally different part of the world, and just think, wow, I gotta know more about this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Those kind of stories can really stick with you, even if you don't know much about the background or culture.
That's exactly what we're doing today. We're taking a deep dive into a real-life story from Japan. It's about a woman named Abi Sada, and let me tell you, her life was, well, it was definitely not ordinary.
Definitely not ordinary. In fact, she caused quite a sensation back in the 1930s in Japan, and people still talk about her story today. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
Now, for those of you who might be new to Japanese history and culture, no worries. We're going to break it all down piece by piece so it makes sense, even if you're just starting to explore Japan.
It's exactly. Consider this your crash course on a truly unique piece of Japanese history. We're going to use historical accounts, stuff like her Wikipedia entry, to try and understand her life. Our goal here isn't just to tell you the facts, though. We want to really figure out who she was, what this big event in her life was all about, and why her story continues to resonate in Japan.
And who knows, maybe by the end, you'll see why it might be interesting to you too, even if you're brand new to learning about Japan.
Okay, so to set the scene, Sada was born in Tokyo in 1905. Imagine Tokyo back then. It was a very different place. Her family owned a tatami shop.
A tatami shop.
Yeah, tatami are these traditional woven mats that are used for flooring in Japanese homes. So basically, they were running a business. They weren't super rich or anything, but they were doing okay.
Got it. So what was her childhood like?
It sounds like she had a pretty interesting childhood, to say the least. She was the youngest of 8 kids, but a few of her older siblings passed away when they were young.
Oh, wow, that's tough.
Yeah. And another sibling was adopted out. So by the time Sada was growing up, she mostly lived with her oldest brother, who was much older than her, and 2 older sisters. In her neighborhood, they called her Osada-chan, which is like a cute nickname, and apparently everyone thought she was a beautiful girl.
So the baby of the family, huh? Probably pretty doted on.
Oh, totally. Being the youngest with such a big age gap, her parents really paid special attention to her. And they were really into the arts, so they made sure she got lessons in things like the shamisen.
Oh, what?
The shamisen, it's like a Japanese instrument, kind of similar to a banjo in some ways, and tokiwazu.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one either.
It's like a style of traditional Japanese singing, almost like storytelling through song. But anyway, her parents, they focused so much on these artsy things that her regular schooling kind of suffered. The teachers actually warned her parents about it, saying she needed to focus more on academics.
So maybe a little bit spoiled then, too, with all that attention.
Perhaps, perhaps. And she seemed to develop a pretty independent streak from a young age, too. Now, things took a bit of a dark turn when she was around 14 years old. She went through something truly terrible. She was raped by a university student.
Oh, that's awful.
It was a really traumatic experience, especially at that age. She wasn't even through puberty yet, and the physical aspect, the bleeding, it really scared her. Her mother tried to confront the student, but she couldn't even get a meeting with him. And in those days, they felt like they had no real recourse, no way to seek justice.
So this lack of support, it really affected Sada, and it's understandable how something like that at such a young age could have a huge impact on her life. How did she cope with all that as a teenager?
Well, it seems like it triggered a period of rebellion. You see, according to Sada herself, she felt like her life was irrevocably changed. She thought because she was no longer a virgin, marriage, which was a really big expectation for women back then, was off the table.
And that made her feel reckless.
Yeah, that's right. Her mom tried to comfort her with kind words and gifts, but Sada, well, she resented it. On top of that, the family was having its own internal issues. Her older siblings were causing some problems, and their tatami shop business was struggling. So, to try and keep Sada away from all this drama at home, her mother started giving her money to go out.
And what did she do with that money?
She ended up spending a lot of it, like a lot. We're talking the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of yen today in Asakusa.
And Asakusa was?
Oh, it was like the big entertainment district in Tokyo back then. It was full of theaters, geisha houses, restaurants, all sorts of things. She became known as a troublemaker, even rivaling a local female gang leader.
Wow, she sounds pretty fearless.
Yeah. Her dad did try to discipline her. He'd lock her out sometimes or even physically punish her. It didn't seem to work, though. She even got a job as a housemaid for a bit, but after only a month, she was sent back home because she stole something.
So she was a bit of a handful, it sounds like.
You could say that. And then, to make matters worse, her eldest brother ran off with a huge chunk of their parents' money.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a mess. They had to close their tatami shop and move to Saitama, which is like a prefecture next to Tokyo. They still had some rental properties in Tokyo, so they weren't completely broke, but it was a major blow.
So how does she go from all that to becoming a geisha?
Well, it wasn't exactly a straightforward path. She kept getting involved with men, and eventually her father and older brother felt like they couldn't control her anymore. So they basically sold her into geisha work when she was 17.
Sold her.
Yeah, they sold her contract to a geisha house. The guy they sold her to was named Inaba Masatake, and he was actually a relative through her brother's ex-sister-in-law. He also used to be an apprentice to a sculptor.
So he had some connection to the arts world?
Exactly. But basically, he became Sialame's pimp, and for about 4 years, he exploited her, controlled her work and finances. It wasn't something she chose freely at all. It was forced on her because of her family situation and this perception that she was out of control.
I mean, that sounds incredibly unfair and exploitative.
It was. She ended up in a geisha house called Harushin Mino in Yokohama. They paid her family 300 yen up front. She took the name Miyako. She worked there for about a year, and then in other areas around Yokohama and Nagano.
So what was it like for her as a geisha? Was she any good at it?
Well, she could play the shamisen, but she wasn't really skilled at the other stuff that geisha were expected to do, like entertaining guests. And that meant when she was at these banquets, clients would often force themselves on her. It wasn't a pleasant experience for her at all.
Wow. And she couldn't really say no, I imagine.
Not really. She was trapped in that system. Interestingly, the money her family got for selling her contract, she actually used that as her own spending money. It's a bit twisted, isn't it?
Very. So how does she get out of that situation?
Well, fate intervened in a way. The Great Kanto earthquake hit in 1923, the huge one that devastated Tokyo.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Well, during the earthquake, she was visiting Inaba, her pimp's house, and it's completely destroyed by fire.
So everyone was okay, but they lost everything.
Pretty much. After that, she took out a loan from a geisha house in Toyama, another region in Japan called Heianro. It was over 1,000 yen, which was a lot back then. She used some of it to pay off her debts and even gave some to Inaba to help his family, who had also lost everything in the earthquake.
So even though he was exploiting her, she still helped him out.
It seems that way. But anyway, by the time she was 20, she was starting to realize how badly Inaba was taking advantage of her, and she tried to break away from him. But it wasn't that simple. See, he had co-signed her contract with that geisha house in Toyama.
So she was tied to him financially.
Exactly. To work off her debt, she had to move to another geisha house in Aida, Nagano Prefecture, in 1925. There, she took the name Shizuka, and she actually became quite popular. But then she contracted a sexually transmitted disease. It gets complicated. Her dad had been hoping she'd get tired of this life and come home, but instead, she decided to become a prostitute. It was called a Mizuden geisha, essentially a geisha who also sold sexual favors. At that time, prostitutes had to get regular health checks for STDs, which geisha didn't have to do.
So she was basically choosing to be more regulated.
In a way, yeah. And it was around this time that she finally got back at Inaba a bit. She told her mother everything about how he had exploited her, and through another person, she managed to get her original contract back from Inaba. He had been holding on to it.
Wow, so she finally got some power back.
You could say that.
Yeah.
So in 1927, she signed a contract with a high-class brothel in Osaka. Have you ever heard of Tobita Shinchi?
I think so. Isn't that one of Japan's most famous red light districts?
That's the one. She got a big advance, 2,800 yen. And get this, her father actually co-signed this contract.
What? I thought he wanted her to leave that life.
It's strange, isn't it? Maybe he just wanted to make sure she was financially secure. Anyway, she took the name Enmaru and became a top earner. After about a year, a regular customer, he was a company employee, actually offered to buy out her contract so they could be together.
A Cinderella story.
Not quite. It turns out one of his subordinates was also a regular client of hers. Awkward. The deal fell apart.
Ouch. So what happened next?
It's kind of sad, really. Her life became even more unstable. She kept running away from brothels, trying to leave the profession, but she'd always end up back in it. She faced all sorts of problems, and she started working in places with less and less desirable clientele.
So things were going downhill.
Yeah. In 1930, she ended up in this place called Taisho Row in Sasayama. This was a pretty rough town. She even had to solicit customers outside, even in the freezing winter. After 6 months, she ran away again, abandoning her debts and becoming someone her former employers were actively chasing.
This all sounds incredibly difficult and dangerous. How did she even survive?
It's amazing, isn't it? She was tough, that's for sure. She worked as a waitress for a while in Kobe, then she went back to Osaka, did all sorts of jobs. High-class prostitute, mistress, live-in helper, you name it. Around this time, she told a doctor that she felt physically sick if you didn't have sex every day.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, it was. The doctor, he gave her some pretty strained advice. He told her to try reading challenging intellectual books or to get married.
That seems like a pretty big leap.
It does, doesn't it? She did try to go back to her family home in Saitama, but those debt collectors from Sasayama were still after her, so she ran back to Osaka. Then, in 1933, her mother passed away in Osaka. The next year, her father got really sick, and she cared for him until he died.
So a lot of loss and upheaval in a short period of time.
You can say that again. And her father's last words to her were apparently, "I never thought I'd be relying on you for care." Which, considering how they treated her, is pretty ironic, don't you think?
Definitely. And what about Inaba? Was he still in the picture?
Believe it or not, she actually got back in touch with him around this time. She heard his daughter had died, and she went to visit his grave in Yokohama. She found him there, in terrible financial straits. So she pawned a ring and gave him 150 yen.
So she helped him out again, even after all he'd done to her.
Strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe she felt some kind of loyalty, or maybe she just had a big heart. But after that, their connection was rekindled, at least for a while. She had a few other lovers during this period, but things didn't end well. One of them sued her for breaking a promise of marriage, so she had to flee to Nagoya to avoid legal trouble.
Running away seems to have been a recurring theme in her life.
It does, doesn't it? Always on the move. Anyway, while she was in Nagoya in 1935, she met this guy, Omiya Goro. He was completely different from the men she'd been involved with before. He was a city councilor, a school principal, a respectable figure in the community.
Sounds like a major change of pace.
Right. He was really critical of her past, though. He kept telling her she'd strayed from the right path and urged her to change her life. She even changed her official address to his area in Nagoya. He wanted her to find honest work, so he helped her get a job as a maid at a restaurant in Tokyo.
So he was trying to help her turn her life around?
It seems that way, yeah.
Yeah.
He even talked about helping her start her own business someday. She started working at this restaurant under a fake name, Tanaka Kayo.
So a fresh start.
Well, not exactly. It wasn't long before she started an affair with the owner of the restaurant, a guy named Ishida Kichiso.
Of course. And this is the guy, right? This is the guy who becomes central to her story.
That's right. Ishida's wife found out about the affair, and Abe and Ishida ran off together. They were constantly moving around, trying to stay hidden. And Abe, she kept asking Omiya for money, making up lies to get it, to help finance their escape.
So this sets the scene for the big incident, the thing that made her so infamous. What exactly happened?
Okay, so they were staying at this love hotel in Tokyo called Mansaki in the Ogu district. On the morning of May 18th, 1936, Abe strangled Ishida to death.
She murdered him.
Yes. And after she killed him, she cut off his genitals and took them with her when she left the hotel.
I mean, that's horrifying.
It was a shocking crime, no doubt about it. The newspaper started reporting on it the next day, and it immediately became a huge story. They called it a bizarre crime, and they weren't wrong.
And 2 days later, she was arrested.
Yeah, at another hotel near Shinagawa Station in Tokyo.
It sounds like the police were really on her trail.
Oh, they were. And the details of her arrest are pretty strange, too. When they caught her, she was wearing Ishida's loincloth around her waist, along with a shirt and a piece of his underwear that was stained with blood.
Wow.
It gets weirder. The police, they were initially confused about Ishida's missing underwear. They didn't realize Abe had been wearing them in prison.
In prison?
Yeah, at Ichigaya prison. And when they asked her to hand them over, because they were dirty, she got really upset.
She didn't want to give them up.
Nope. She said something like, "This has the scent of me and Kichi-san," that's what she called Ishida, "so I absolutely will not give it up."
It gives you a glimpse into the intensity of her feelings for him, but it's also pretty disturbing.
Definitely. And the public reaction to all of this, well, it was absolutely huge. The news of her arrest, the details of the crime, it just sent shockwaves through Japan.
It must have been a massive scandal.
It was. When her first court hearing happened, there were tons of people trying to get in, some even lined up overnight just for a chance to be in the courtroom.
Wow, she was like a celebrity. in a way.
Yeah, a very notorious one. They actually had to move the lottery for courtroom access to an earlier time because so many people wanted to attend. That's how much public fascination there was with Absutada.
And what about the trial itself? What was the outcome?
Well, the court ordered a psych evaluation, to try and understand her mental state,
Hmm.
the results. They said she wasn't legally insane, but she did show some tendencies towards sadism. Yeah, meaning she derived pleasure from inflicting pain. And they also saw signs of fetishism.
Meaning a sexual interest in things that aren't, well, typical.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. Body parts, objects, things like that. So in December 1936, she was sentenced to 6 years in prison.
6 years for murder.
Well, it included the time she'd already spent in jail waiting for the trial. And because her case was so notorious, they had to sneak her to Chigi prison, where she was going to serve her sentence. They dressed her up as a man, put her in a car with blacked-out windows, the whole 9 yards. They didn't want anyone to see her.
So how did she adapt to life behind bars?
It wasn't easy at first. She didn't even know the basic prison routines, like the morning exercises. But over time, she became what they called a model prisoner. She worked really hard, apparently even doing twice the amount of work that was expected. But there were still concerns about her mental state and about her influencing other inmates.
So they moved her around.
Yeah, they transferred her between 7 different prisons all across Japan during her time in prison.
7.
She would also have these emotional breakdowns around the anniversary of Ishida's death, becoming really agitated and uncooperative. But prison chaplain helped her to calm down. During her time in prison, she read a lot of books, philosophy, ideology, that sort of thing, and she ended up converting to Nichiren Buddhism.
So prison was a time of, I don't know, maybe some personal growth for her.
Maybe? It's interesting to think about. And get this, she apparently received something like 10,000 fan letters while she was in prison. And even marriage proposals. Crazy, right?
10,000. That's a lot of mail. It's amazing how she continued to capture people's imaginations, even behind bars. What happened when she finally got out of prison?
Okay, so she was granted an early release in 1941. It was because of a general amnesty, basically a pardon for a bunch of people, to celebrate the 2600th anniversary of Japan's mythical founding. They cut her sentence in half. Her sister picked her up, and she stayed at a halfway house for a few days. Then she did something really unexpected.
What's that?
She went to live with Inaba, her former pimp, and his wife.
Wow, I did not see that coming.
It was pretty surprising. By this point, Inaba had a regular job in insurance. He and his wife basically became her protectors. She even started calling them father and mother, and for about 7 years, she lived under a fake name, Yoshi Masako, in an apartment in Tokyo. She even got involved with this salaryman. They were basically common law married.
So she was really trying to put her past behind her, create a new life.
It seems that way. But during the Tokyo air raids in 1945, she had to evacuate to a village in Ibaraki, where she helped with farming. And after the war, she ended up living in Kawaguchi City, near Tokyo. But her past, well, it wasn't easy to escape.
How so?
In 1947, all these really sensational, kind of trashy books about her were published. They were called Kastribon. And they were full of, well, really lurid details.
Exploiting her story.
Absolutely. And she was really upset about it, especially this one book, Osada's Confession of Carnal Sins. She and Inaba actually sued the author and the publisher for defamation, saying it damaged her reputation and Ishida's memory.
So she was fighting back.
Yes, she was. And the book was actually banned. Around this time, her common-law husband, well, he left her when he found out who she really was. But her story continued to fascinate people, even famous writers. Osamu Dazai, have you heard of him?
The novelist, yeah, I think so.
He wrote a novel based on her called The Lady Demon. And another writer, Angu Sakaguchi, he interviewed her for a magazine. It was this whole thing. They were part of a literary movement called Buraiha, which is like decadent school. They often portrayed her as a femme fatale, dangerous and seductive.
It's fascinating how her story was interpreted in different ways.
It really is. Then, in 1948, she published her own memoirs, Abe Sada's Memoirs.
So she was trying to control her own narrative.
Exactly, to tell her side of the story. And after that, she went on a tour for about 6 months, sharing her story on stage. It's hard to imagine, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
The filmmaker, Nobuhiko Obayashi, he actually remembers seeing her perform when he was a kid. She gave him a mandarin orange. He said it was a big inspiration for his later film, Sada.
Wow, so she was going from prison to the stage. What a life.
I know, right? She also worked as a geisha again in Kyoto. Then she was a hostess at a bar in Osaka and a waitress at an inn in Izu. You've never been to
I
Easy?
haven't, but I've heard it's beautiful. Lots of hot springs, right?
Yeah, exactly. So she was all over the place. But then, in 1954, she was approached by the owner of this folk song bar in Asakusa. It was called Hoshiki Kusui. He wanted her to be the main attraction.
Really? Like a celebrity guest.
Yeah, pretty much. She got a big signing bonus and a way higher salary than anyone else who worked there. The bar, they advertised this dreamlike atmosphere where you could be served steak by Osada herself.
So they were using her notoriety to attract customers.
Totally. It worked too. She was a big draw. But she didn't just serve drinks. She helped prepare food, and then at the end of banquets, they'd announce it's Osada, and she'd entertain the guests.
Sounds like she was a hard worker.
She was. She even got an award for being an excellent employee a few years later. She even tried to open her own bar called Queen in Ueno, but it closed after 6 months because an employee stole money.
That's terrible.
It is. But then, in 1967, she opened a small rice ball shop called Wakatake in Tokyo. Rice balls, or onigiri, are a very common Japanese food.
I love onigiri.
Right. They're simple, but so good.
Mm.
Anyway, her shop became a kind of gathering place for all sorts of people. Celebrities, sumo wrestlers, politicians, you name it. Even some people who were involved in her original case would show up.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy. And the famous buko dancer, Tatsumi Hijikata, he was fascinated by her story, and he was a regular customer at her shop.
So she was finally finding some stability, it seems like.
In a way, yeah. But her past still haunted her. Remember Inaba, her former pimp? He passed away in 1956, and his wife died in 1968. After his wife died, Abe started talking about wanting to die, but she didn't want her identity to be known. It's like she still felt so much shame even after all those years.
I can only imagine.
In 1969, Hijikata, the dancer, asked if he could take some photos of her. He said he wanted to capture her pure soul.
That's interesting.
She also appeared in a movie that same year, Meiji, Taisho, Showa, History of Bizarre Female Crimes. They even asked her to talk about the meaning of love.
Wow, so she was back in the public eye again.
She was. But even though her past was always there, people who knew her from the bar and her rice ball shop, they said she was a really kind and generous person. She almost never talked about the 1936 incident, though.
I guess it makes sense that she wouldn't want to dwell on something so traumatic.
But some people took advantage of her. Police officers, legal personnel, people who had been involved in her case years before, they'd come to her shop and ask for money or favors, exploiting her past.
That's awful.
It is. Then in 1970, she suddenly disappeared from Wakatake. The woman who helped her run the shop had gotten sick, and Abe was struggling with her own health. She also got scammed by a younger lover she'd been supporting financially.
So all this stress just became too much.
I think so. She closed the shop, went to Osaka, and apparently thought about suicide. But a geisha there convinced her to go back to Tokyo.
This is leading up to her final disappearance, right?
That's right. In 1971, she ran into the guy who had originally recruited her for Hoshiki Kusui. He helped her get a job at a hotel in Chiba, near Tokyo. She was 65 years old at this point. She asked to be called Ko, which is the name of a character from a play. There were rumors she was giving money and gifts to younger men, but the hotel owner's wife said it wasn't true.
So who knows what to believe?
Exactly. Anyway, in June 1971, she left a note saying she was going to get treatment for rheumatism and that she'd be back later. But she only took a yukata, which is a light cotton kimono, and that was it. She was gone.
And no one's seen her since.
There have been some unconfirmed stories. Someone said they got a letter from her in 1974 asking about becoming a nun. Another story claims she was living at an inn near the Asakusa View Hotel in the 1980s, but then vanished again.
It's almost like she just wanted to disappear completely.
It's possible. And there were even flowers sent anonymously to a memorial service for Ishida for years after she disappeared. No one knows for sure who sent them, but her official resident registration was deleted because she never updated her address, so it's like she just ceased to exist.
What a story. It's heartbreaking in a way. She went through so much trauma, so much exploitation.
She did. But there's something about her that continues to capture people's imaginations.
What do you think that is? Why do you think Abe Sada is still remembered in Japan?
It's a good question. I think it's because her story is more than just a crime. It touches on so many things. Poverty, abuse, the expectations that were placed on women back then. It's about her struggle for freedom and control in a society that didn't really allow her to have it.
And in a way, she kind of became a symbol of something, even if it wasn't always a positive symbol.
Right. She defied convention. She broke the rules. And whether you see her as a victim, a villain, or something in between, there's no denying that her story is powerful, and it continues to make people think.
Well said.
And I think there's a lesson in there somewhere about how we judge people, how we create narratives, how one event can overshadow an entire life.
Food for thought, for sure. Thanks for taking us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.